Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first episode. And my name's Regs.
And I'm Aady.
And this is the Film Addicts Podcast. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Film Addicts Podcast. Yep, that's what I said. It's our first episode, and you can tell because I'm stuffing up already. We're here to talk about all things film. We are addicts. Hi, I'm Regan. I'm an addict, and this is my good pal Aady. And we're just going to rap about it. And, you know, this has been talked to death, obviously, this topic. But we're going to be talking about the MC, you better believe it. That's another podcast about Marvel. But who gives a shit? Because it's going to be super fun. And first off, I just want to get a bit of history here because, I mean, a lot of people, you know, it's been going for such a long time now, the MCU. Aady, what is your experience of the MCU? Because I know what mine is, but I've got some years on you. So where did you sort of begin to become aware of what was happening?
So I don't know what's happening right now with Multiverse of Madness, but my first Marvel movie, as of we can call it right now, was I think the second X-Men movie.
Oh, really? Okay.
It was the first time that I saw superheroes. Basically, I didn't understand it because I was like 3 years old. But my first proper introduction to MCU, as we know now, was the first Thor movie. That was directed by Kenneth Branagh, I believe.
Yep.
And it was crazy because growing up, I was a lot into like mythology. And just seeing how someone like Thor, who's like so beloved and like so over the top, in a good way, in all mythology, it's just this. They dumb it down to a normal person. They make him funny in a way that wasn't. I don't think wasn't done like except for Iron Man before.
Yeah.
And that's how I got to know about the MCU, and then. I didn't watch any film in theaters for like I think it was like the first. I'm fucking up, man. I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter, man. It's fine. It's fine. Just keep going. This is what it is, you know.
Yeah. I think I started getting invested after the first Avengers film, and I remember that being this. It was so big that even people who didn't know about the MCU knew that this was something that was happening.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then I think it was around. I think it was Winter Soldier where I was like, "This is my thing. I'm getting into this."
This is my jam.
Yeah.
I love it.
So yeah, and then I became a fan. What about yours?
Let me just ask you a question though. So your first experience was the original Thor movie.
Yeah.
And you would have been like early teens or
No, Iron Man came out when I was 5, so I would have been 7.
And fuck you, I'm old. Ridiculous. It's like I'm like your grandfather. Yeah, let's do a podcast with your grandpa. You know? It's my grandpa Rach. I remember the MCU. For me, it was I was like a fucking 25 or something when the first Iron Man film came out. But look, and you probably see this less nowadays, but when I was in primary school and high school, you didn't tell people you were into comic books. Are you kidding me? Do you want to get beat up behind the cricket shed? No, you don't. So you keep it to yourself and you read comics and you trade them with your pals who also have comics, and there's only a few of you. But I've been a huge Marvel and DC fan as well for years and years. And the one that really happened was even before X-Men was Blade. The first Blade film came out when I was like, I would have been 16, 17. And that movie fucking rules. Like it is really, really great. And that was kind of like, all right, there's the dam broke. And as you were saying before we started the record, Avi Arad was in control of all that at the time, and Kevin Feige was his assistant, if I remember correctly. And that was sort of people started looking at comics in a different way, because before that we'd had the Superman franchise, which had kind of gone away, the Christopher Reeve one, you know, and it was diminishing returns, even though the third one's still the best, and I stand by that. And then you had the Batman, you know, the two Tim Burton Batman films, and then the two sort of lesser liked Joel Schumacher films, even though I think Batman Returns is a really good movie. And it was, people kind of had a bad taste in their mouth about this stuff. And then Blade hit, and then X-Men, and then fucking Spider-Man. Raimi's first Spider-Man. It was huge. It was the biggest film in the world. It was the biggest thing in the world. It made Tobey Maguire a household name, and that was never going to happen any other way. And then it kind of just kept happening, you know, and we had a reboot of Batman, and we had some Fantastic Fours, and we had some more X-Men's, and there was all this stuff going on. And then, yeah, just quietly behind closed doors, Feige pulls in Jon Favreau coming off the back of making Zathura, a pretty great sort of space version of Jumanji.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you go, man.
But like, I didn't watch that film when it came out because I was really, really young. But I watched it with my younger brother, who's like just getting into movies.
Yep.
And if you watch that film, it's a film about just two brothers just going off into space, and it's so beautiful. It's weird and it's cheesy, but it's so beautiful at the end.
It's great. Yeah, it's a really good film, and it proved that he had directing chops and the ability to work with you know, CG technology and you know, what was going to be at the forefront of these kind of films. And they just made this little film with you know, an untested Robert Downey Jr. They didn't want him for that role. Like, he was coming out of rehab. He'd had kind of a bit of his renaissance had started with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, but it was, people were talking about Tom Cruise for a really long time, and this movie comes out and just blows everybody's head off. And there was that whole teaser thing at the end. They shot, you know, the post-credit sequence. That was a gag. And now that's part of the pop culture zeitgeist, is having those in your films. So for me, it was watching all of those guys and people in when I was younger making fun of this stuff being now like converts. And I'm happy. I'm not one of those angry nerds who's like, fuck you can't like it now because you didn't like it then. Let's come on board. The water's fine. Get in here. We've got Superman and Spider-Man and fucking people who throw ninja stars at people, and it's wonderful. So like, and being an adult as well and a filmmaker, you know, when I was 25, I was already, you know, almost 10 years into my filmmaking career. You know, I started making films when I was in my mid-teens. And to see Iron Man do so well, and then that kind of progress into, because Iron Man's like a perfect movie. It's really so tight. But you were talking to me about the history about this film before. It's stuff that I didn't know. There was no script.
Yeah, so there was no script whatsoever. They had a storyline of what they wanted to do. Mm-hmm. But because it was Kevin Feige and Jon Favreau, this is the impact of this film, is that there's no way, shape, or form where there's a universe where this movie wasn't made without Jon Favreau, because these are nerds. These are actual nerds who studied these characters, and they're going off of things as if like they could bring in what's his name? What's the leader of the Fantastic Four?
Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards.
Reed Richards.
Yeah.
God.
That's it. No, I'm taking a nerd point off. You get a nerd point. No. Everybody, all of our listeners, all three of you, Addie has one nerd point taken off because he didn't know who Reed Richards was. So what were we saying? Sorry.
Yeah, so they were playing around with names of like who could be like these Easter eggs and stuff, but they couldn't. So they were like, okay, so here's a story, and this is a crazy story as of we go, because not a lot of people know that it was Marvel Studios before Marvel Studios went under Disney after the Avengers. Like now, when you watch the Avengers, it's an actual Disney property.
Yeah.
But up until Captain America, it was all individual. It was these indie films with these big characters and this larger than life stories. Mm-hmm. And that was it. That was the selling point, is that we have never, that was the thing. That we had never seen anything like it, and that was the big thing with anything going on. Because I mean, see, you read an Iron Man comic, or especially the one that was like written in the 60s, where they actually dive into his alcoholism. He's not a really good character, is he?
No. I mean, that's the Demon in a Bottle storyline is great because it's something that you hadn't seen a character go through. Like that's the thing that Marvel has over DC is the human problems. DC has pathos because they're big, godlike beings. Marvel has the problems. Superman's not going to get an alcohol addiction. But like on paper, you're right. The character of Iron Man and the Avengers as well. This was their B team of property.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Sony had all the good shit.
Yeah, Sony had Spider-Man, which made them tons and tons of money.
Oh yeah, that's why they still haven't let it go. It's there's a world where how this happened, how they managed to get Spider-Man into Civil War, I'll never fucking understand. Like the legally backflips they would have had to perform to get that character into the Marvel Cinematic Universe and still retain the rights, I can't even fathom. But it's making everybody a lot of money. But it's why they will never let go of that property.
Absolutely, I agree with that. It's a crazy story, and I think it was last year in 2021 where Marvel came up with a 2-part book called the History of the MCU or something like that. It's a huge book with like 2 parts, and they go in and they tell you how they got there. It's because at the time of Civil War there was so much push, or just because the Amazing Spider-Man 2 was coming out with Andrew Garfield at the time.
Yep.
With that was the second Avengers film, and there was so much push, or just having like a little Avengers Tower just hanging there in the TASM 2 film, but they didn't. And so if you believe it or not, there's a script of Civil War where there's no mention of Spider-Man whatsoever.
Oh, really?
Because they were like, if we do this, then we have to do it in a way where even if we don't get this character, the whole story doesn't change at all. So even if you take out the small part of Spider-Man in Civil War, the larger story still remains the same.
Yeah.
But it's the magic of the fans, and I believe that, like, even though it's not very, very true, but I still believe that it's the fans that keep all of this going. But it was Kevin Feige who went to Sony and said that, well, we have this crazy idea, and both of us are having success now, because at the time TASM was making movie, like the Amazing Spider-Man franchise wasn't like really, really low. There's still a lot of money there, right? And it's Spider-Man. It's always going to be money there.
Yeah, there's always going to be cash. Yeah.
So they were like, if we do this and we have Spider-Man with us, it's going to be a collaboration. But the only way we can do it is that we do Spider-Man our way.
Yeah. And
so I think the consensus was that Andrew Garfield left, and they brought in Tom Holland and they rebooted Spider-Man, which is another thing. But it's so crazy that we live in a world where that happened.
Yeah, it's bonkers. It really is bonkers. And people, I don't think people really people accept it really quickly. And I call them normal people, people who don't do podcasts about this stuff. The normal folk, the people, your regular ticket buyer who goes, yeah, I like them Robert Downey Juniors, and I enjoyed that film. I'm going to go and see it. Maybe they don't know who all the Avengers are, or you say an actor, and say Paul Bettany, and they don't know who that is. They just see Vision or whatever. But those are the people who are buying all these tickets. It's the reason these films do so well, because everybody's going. It's not all of us nerds going 4 times. Well, I mean, sometimes it is, but it's you like call back to the Stitch Up episode where I was talking about the Batman. Like, I'm definitely going again. It'll be number 4, but whatever. But yeah, it's the people not appreciating or not being able to appreciate seeing all these characters on screen together. I was talking to my fiance about it the other day, and we were watching No Way Home. Great film. and the bit at the end happens where it's the spoilers if anyone is listening and hasn't seen No Way Home. And by the way, what do you live on the fucking moon?
What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Why are you listening to this podcast? You've made a mistake. So we were watching that bit, and I said to her just before where they all, Peter's like, trust you, Peter Tingle. I'm Peter 1, Peter 2, and he goes, Peter 3, and then they all run together and then jump, and the score rises, and they use their webbing to like help each other flip. And I can't help but get goosebumps. And I said, imagine being a 4-year-old, 5-year-old Regs. Like the first gift I ever remember getting was a Spider-Man comic. I still have it. It was a Doc Ock Spider-Man comic from the 80s, Spectacular Spider-Man issue like 398 or something. And I learned how to read because of that book. And it started my love affair with comics. If you have that previous with these properties, you get more out of the fact that Spider-Man turns up in that film. And gets and him and Cap are having the tete-a-tete about where they're from. It's just where are you from? Queens. He's like Brooklyn. Like it just you like they are. That's where they come from. Like it just. I don't think you're going to be able to appreciate it as much, or maybe you appreciate it, but for very different reasons.
Absolutely. And just to go back to that conversation with Spider-Man and Cap, it's so funny that you say that. Is that because I got excited for the conversation, but it was a totally different reason. Mm-hmm. Because in the first Captain America movie, Dr. Erskine, who creates the super soldier serum, he mistakes him for Queens. And so when Cap asks him where Spidey's from, and he's Queens,
yeah, and he's holding the thing up, yeah, yeah,
there's a smile on his face. It's the callback to that, and you see how different just one line in just one film, just one tiny line, just it has so many different impacts.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll come to that later too. We're going to talk about our favourite lines and our favourite movies because it's, some of these films have been written by really great writers and who care about stuff. And, we'll talk a little bit about it. Obviously, there's a lot of backlash about these movies being the only type of movies that are getting a big play in cinemas and, the money that's around them and the money that gets put into them. And if you've got a property that isn't a franchise, it's no one gives a shit. And Martin Scorsese's comments, and we won't go into it too much, but I just want to touch on it briefly and talk about the market and where we are. And cast your mind back, if you will, Addie, to was it? What did you say? It was 2008 that Iron Man came out.
Yeah, 2008.
The same year as The Dark Knight. Imagine trying to
That's true.
Yeah, like you're trying to have to make waves in a world where that movie just comes out. The Godfather of superhero pictures, if you want, that's what a lot of people say. I don't agree with it, but it's something people say. So Iron Man comes out, it goes head to head with Dark Knight or something like that, and doesn't work. It's not a success. No one gives a shit. Robert Downey Jr. fades into obscurity and doesn't own Seven Islands. What is the landscape of cinema 15 years later without these movies?
I have a few answers to that question, but I want to hear yours first.
Okay. This is why we're good co-hosts. We always give each other room. I honestly don't know. I feel like the advent of streaming would... Okay, so you can argue that these films are cyclical in the same way that in the 1930s and 40s, the big musical was the thing that people went and saw, or the 50s and 60s, Gone with the Wind's not a musical, you dickhead. What's the one I'm trying to think of? Sing in the Rain, Mary Poppins,
yeah.
Those kind of things. That was what the companies put their money into. And then there was also a time for westerns. A lot of people making westerns. In the 90s, it was big box comedy, gross out comedy, American Pie, that kind of thing. Things do have a time, and then there is a time for not that. And then eventually the superhero film will fade, and there will be, even the Batman's a testament to that. It is so anti these type of movies, even though it's in the genre.
Totally.
We're leaning that way because people are, they're getting a bit fatigued, and I get it. But there's a beginning, like Iron Man working and starting the launch of the MCU, and then DC seeing the impact that these films have had and going, we need to do this, and then Man of Steel, BVS, and on from there. Without the success of Iron Man, you don't get these big blockbusters. The blockbuster kind of disappears. What do we have? What else do we have? Harry Potter's well over. You've got the Fast series. And I don't think the Fast and the Furious series would be what it is now without the success of the MCU, because no one would give a shit about IP. They wouldn't care about these big sort of longs. And they wouldn't be as... Like, I don't know if you've watched the Fast and the Furious films, Addie, but I watched them all last... Have you seen them?
I haven't. I've seen the one where it's the farewell to Paul Walker. That's the only one I've seen, and that's the only one I remember.
That's like all the way at the end of the series. You haven't even seen the first few. It's about dudes who race cars and steal DVD players and shit off the backs of trucks. By the time you get to Hobbs and Shaw, the spin-off with The Rock and Jason Statham, it's full-on science fiction. And, Idris Elba's character in that is a super soldier. He's literally, like, body is infused with technology. Like, it's batshit. Yeah. And you don't get there without the MCU being as successful as it is my point. And if I have a point. I think the blockbuster goes away. What I do think that allows in the marketplace is for the rise of indie cinema, like a new wave of indie cinema. See, you agree with that?
Yes.
I think that would happen. I think we would start getting, these directors who had big opportunities like Favreau and stuff like that. He might have gone on to make Aliens and Cowboys or whatever the fuck it is that he did. But I think there would be a resurgence the way that there was in the 90s of young filmmakers making some interesting introspective dramas. And these genre pictures would be very much to a lesser extent. I think DC would maybe have continued and done a Superman reboot, but the idea to connect them all wouldn't be there. So basically what I think would happen is you would see the death of the blockbuster, which unfortunately would probably lead to the death of brick and mortar cinemas. With the advent of streaming services, even things like Disney Plus and whatnot, Star Wars would be in a very different place if it wasn't for the MCU success, because people look at these things that they can sell.
Absolutely.
It's like you're saying, there's a lot of money behind this stuff, and you remove that from the marketplace, and cinemas close. Even most recently, and I know that there's a lot of people out there who have a problem with these films, and these people are very, very vocal about them, despite the fact that Francis Ford Coppola just came out and said that he loved the Deadpool movie, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of derision around these films, but Paul Thomas Anderson said it. People are going back to the cinema after a pandemic to see Spider-Man No Way Home. The pandemic hits in the beginning of 2020, and there is no Marvel Cinematic Universe. Nobody goes to the cinemas anymore. That's streaming only.
That's the definitive downfall. If nothing had happened before that would have been it.
Yeah.
For all cinemas.
And that would have been super sad. You would have had like little indie jobs like the one in Melbourne we've got here, the Astor that plays legacy pictures and things like that. But big chain cinemas, I mean, you saw it happen when the COVID hit. It was places were closing and stuff. And the reason people came back was because you don't want to see Spider-Man No Way Home for the first time on Disney Plus. That was the mistake that HBO made, by going, we'll throw Dune out day and date release. I mean, you fucking insane? Like, oh, you got so mad then. I saw you get really mad.
I get so mad, man. All of them, it's okay. Matrix, Wonder Woman, I do not care. I do not give a flying fuck. You release Dune on HBO Max. I swear to God, if they hadn't done that, if they just restricted that one film, it would have been the first film of 2021 to hit $1 billion. I swear.
Yeah. Okay. That's the argument as well. Is okay. So if this is where we are, if they're able to do, because Disney didn't do it. You know, Disney had premium prices for their stuff. They were like, you want to watch Black Widow in your home, you've got to pay some, you know, the amount of what would be equivalent to 2 tickets going to the cinema.
Yeah, I think it was $30, $30 for the premium for Black Widow.
Yeah, and I did it for early access to The Suicide Squad, the James Gunn picture, because we were in lockdown here in Melbourne and I couldn't go. And I'm like, well, fuck it, I want to see this movie. It was $30.
That also happened. The Suicide Squad also came on the streaming.
Yeah.
Simultaneously.
Yeah. It's just it's a very, very different world. If Iron Man isn't successful in 2008, very, very different cinematic landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's so hard because for me, I love Superman, and you know that.
You're a big DC fan. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. We don't say that. I love both equally. I
didn't say you didn't. I didn't say that you were DC. Like, I'm happy to say that I like DC comics more than I like Marvel comics.
Oh, yeah.
But because they do things more successively. But the MCU is more successful than DC. But then again, DC comes out with something like the Batman, you know, and I'm like, oh, okay, you've got a different voice. So yeah, you're right.
Absolutely.
There is no one or the other.
Yeah, that question. So you stole my point, which was my biggest point. Was that
we'll get fucked? You've got to get in quick. I'm going to put a disclaimer at the start. This is swearing in this one. We'll get in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll get yelled at on YouTube. That's fine. That's fine. So sorry, what was the point that I stepped on? You said.
No, you stole my point, which is that even I believe that with the Dark Knight trilogy and the first Iron Man movie not doing well, all we would have is just indie films, which like for me as an aspiring filmmaker is kind of what we'd hope for. Is that because it's so big and everyone just wants franchise after franchise, nobody really cares about just original and just the unique ideas anymore.
Mm.
That's why when something like the Batman comes out in a century, it's such a big deal, is because it's so different. It's so different. It's so unique than anything out there. They just immediately become successful because there's nothing else to compare with.
Yeah.
Which I disagree, because if you go back to like the 70s or even like the 30s with like the noir films, you could still find inspiration from that.
Mm.
But in a day and age where we live right now, it's a really hard world to imagine a world without superhero movies, basically.
Yeah.
And it's not just that. It's that, you know, you're a professional filmmaker now, right? And you know, you grew up with these characters reading them, and then you got to watch them on screen.
Mm.
And for my generation, there are people who watch those films and they're like, oh, so you can get that on page. And then we get into comics, and then we're like, but now I know what that is. I know what I've seen on screen. I know what I can see on the page.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can craft my own story, getting inspiration from both of them.
Yeah.
And it's something that it doesn't happen anymore. You don't see indie films like I think the biggest one could be that the biggest difference between those two worlds where superhero films are successful and superhero films are not, is that a company like A24 would be as big as Disney.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all for that. But then again, if we don't have the MCU, right, it doesn't give hope to young filmmakers. Even if we like go on for a century with indie films, there's a point where we're gonna get bored.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I've just started getting into comics again. And I picked up a random comic from a shop and I bought it. It's Infinity Warps. It's about universes colliding and becoming one. So you have a variant where it's Captain Supreme or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Captain America, but it's also Stephen Strange. So like the two characters
That's
is
cool.
into one,
Yeah, right.
and you can do so many different things with that. And just reading a few pages from that was like, oh, it would be so cool to see that on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's Iron Man, which is also Thor. So he's got the full Iron Man suit, but also has the Mjolnir.
Right on.
Right?
That's
Like
cool.
how rad it's so rad to just see that, right?
Yeah.
And just have that on the page, but also like just imagining to see that.
Yeah.
And like these, I don't want to piss off anyone, but I completely disagree when they that's what we're doing here. We're pissing off a lot of people.
Well, they'll stop listening then, and who cares? It's the people who if they don't agree with us, that's fine. You don't have to agree with what we're saying. We're allowed to have our point of view. It's what the internet's for.
Absolutely.
So to piss people off, go right ahead. Piss off warning in 3, 2, 1. There you go. Now
I absolutely disagree. When it comes to people saying that superhero films are the death of cinema.
Mm.
And I don't think that they know what they actually mean. They're just repeating the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. And when someone like Martin Scorsese says that and backs it up with you get it. You go, Martin, I totally get it, mate. I absolutely get where you're coming from. He's from an older class of filmmaker. I get it. But when, some 19-year-old blogger jumps on the bandwagon, I'm like, dude, maybe research a little bit what's going on here and where these people end up. It's just, it's pretty, it's immature is what it is. There we go. I just pissed a bunch of people off too. We're in it together.
Love it.
Yeah.
And why I say that they don't know what they mean is that when Martin Scorsese says that superhero films or theme park films are death of cinema, it's not what he actually means. He means it's the death of cinema as he knows it. It's the death of cinema that that he fell in love with. And to be honest, that was like decades ago. And I'm still not okay with every genre just dying. But there's a time and place for every genre to rise. And it's not that these are bad films. The amount of money and the amount of work that goes into just one project of this Excalibur, it's unbelievable the amount of people that get employed and have money to feed their families because of it. It's a very real world that we live in where if we don't have these films, a lot of people are unemployed.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, it's and I think that's the worst part about it. I mean, Scorsese could come to my door and tell me that I was going to die in 15 minutes. But if he did it in that sweet little I'm a New York caterpillar voice, I would totally listen to him. But you're right. When he says it, he means what the days that I remember are gone. But we need to be careful because we're flooding the market with this stuff, and it's leaving very, very little room for other things that are important. And not putting saying one's better than the other, just saying these two things are different, and one has a share of the market that is unfair compared to the other. And he's totally right about that. I think people who come out and say that it's crap or it's, whatever, they're trash or they're garbage, whatever, and no one cares about it. It's, it's theme park cinema or whatever the fucking phrase was that was toted around at that time. It's so dismissive of the art form under any circumstances. You could see the worst film ever made. You could see The Room or Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Don't go there. The Room is the best. The Room is the best film ever made, and that's it.
The Room is the best film ever made, and that's it. I like it. There's a professional film reviewer here, ladies and gentlemen, clearly. Maybe not The Room then. Something else that sucks, all right? It's something else that people just generally don't like. It's dismissive to say that they don't have a place. There's a place for everything. And unless it's like, horrible and it's like bad for people. But just if people expressing themselves, particularly writers and directors, actors who invest in their creative craft. Someone sat down and figured out how the fuck to make Infinity War and Endgame. Like, imagine what you would have to do just to get your head around the narrative of those things. That's not easy. You don't do that because you are thinking about Disney's bottom line. You do that because you want to have a satisfying end to 15 years worth of storytelling. It's just that simple. And I also think that when people come out, and it does tend to be these older dudes, and they've done some brilliant work. I mean, Ridley Scott came out when his film The Last Duel didn't do well, and blamed Gen Y or whatever you guys are, that generation for being on their phones all the time, and said that all Marvel movies is shit. I'm like, yeah, but you've also got a movie out. Roland Emmerich said it too, because he's got a movie coming out too. It seems they're very, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. They just seem strategically placed, these comments. Strategically placed as in, I've got a movie to promote, so let me shit on this other stuff so people maybe come and see my thing. It's all
a PR stunt. It's that's all it is. Every person coming out and saying it, it's a PR stunt.
Yeah.
And there's some people who actually believe that. But actually, coming back to your original question, is that what's the world like without the MCU?
Yeah.
Right? Oh God, I lost my train of thought. Shit.
This is good.
I had such a good point.
You see, you got to have a pad. I've got a notepad. You got to write these things down.
Ah, man.
So, what is the world like without the MCU? It's probably it's boring in places. I'll tell you that much. We don't have the resurgence of. Oh, you got it?
I got it.
You got it? Go, shoot.
Yeah. I think we'd have better comic book movies.
Is that right? Okay. All right. Explain yourself.
So,
you son of a bitch. How dare you? No, I could care less.
Right.
What do you mean?
Yeah. So what I mean is that there's no way that a generation goes and reads these comics and doesn't get inspired.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, especially, and the people that I know who are in the same field of filmmaking, even though there are a lot of people who shit on these films are like our saviors. And they make tons of money. And you know why? I'll give you a very, very logical answer to that. Why they make the money that they make. Mm-hmm. When you have a family of 4 people, right? And you want to go watch a movie, have a good time. You want to watch something that's going to be worth your money, and you're going to have a good time. You're not going to go to an indie movie with a family of 4 people, are you?
Yeah, good point.
Right? And especially to filmmakers now who are like, oh, Marvel sucks and all that. I get it. You want to jump on the Marvel sucks train, like it is. But these films, no matter how big they are, how many people have their opinions on it, these films still inspire people to get into filmmaking. And I think that's not the impact that a lot of people go for. But if you make something and it goes on a big screen, it's something to be proud of, right? Mm-hmm. But what's the next step? You inspire someone else to do the same thing that you did, right? And there's generation of people who will, like, for you read those comics and then you watch them on screen, right? For us, we will watch it, and we have the whole backlog of the MCU to know what to do and what not to do, right? And we can learn from that. We can learn from all the 30 films that they made. We can learn from the mistakes that they made, and we can learn from everything else that they did. And we can see the DCU and what they did well and what they did bad. And we can all learn from it and be storytellers in whatever shape we want to be, right? It's not that a person, like if an aspiring filmmaker goes and he watches or she watches a Marvel film or DC or superhero film, right? And comes back and like, oh, I want I want to get this superhero in this movie, and this is how I want to do it. It's not that. It's getting inspired by these stories. And what's so fulfilling about just watching these films is that it's these stories that have inspired these people to create these stories on screen. And I hope that in the coming years that we have the impact that people just dial down a bit on like all the shit that people are giving these movies, because to be honest, there's no way that these films are going away. At least anytime soon.
Not right now. No, I mean, there's too much,
not right now,
much
at
stake. No, it's fine. Like, you're not wrong. I mean, eventually, the stories will run dry. But I guess with the advent of Disney Plus and things like that and HBO Max, they're able to do. I mean, they're making a Batgirl movie right now for HBO Max that'll get released, direct to that streaming service. So I think it'll just be a new thing. It'll be a new way of doing it, as opposed to what everybody is worried about, which is the wholesale slaughter of any other kind of cinematic form that would be out. Like I see a lot of movies. I see heaps and heaps of movies. I go to the movies a couple of times a week, and I'm not always going to see this stuff, but that's because I'm a film addict. And
let's go.
The titular line. I had to get it in there. But yeah, I think that's really interesting, the point that you make about how you feel like we get more interesting movies that way and people are inspired. You're totally right, because there's all of these things, like there's each one, and we'll talk about it when we go through our favorites, like one might speak to you in a way that will speak to someone in a different way. So if you're a father who maybe feels like they haven't engaged with their daughter enough or engaged with their child enough, maybe you relate very much to Ant-Man, about a guy who doesn't have a relationship with his daughter because he's been in prison, whatever that is. Maybe if you feel like that you never really were able to be with your great love, the Cap's story is because, that's a great arc.
It's all that.
Yeah, it's all there, that. And then you can take those ideas. You can watch the Captain America movies. If you watch Cap 1, 2, and 3, and then the Avengers pictures, all the 4 Avengers pictures all together in a row, Cap's story is very, very clear. He doesn't really change so much as things change around him and he adapts. But in the end, he gets to his last dance, which is just, that's the reason that movie ends that way, because it's the most satisfying ending. If you have a love story in your heart to tell, and you watch that love story, and then go and write one that doesn't have any Chitauri in it at all, or anybody flinging shields at nobody, like you don't have anything genre in that story at all, but it's still a beautiful love story. Of course, that's informed by what you've seen. It doesn't matter that it happened to be on that grand of a scale. So you're absolutely right. It's just going to lead to more interesting shit.
Yeah. And just to go back to the Cap thing, is that people say that Iron Man and Captain America are the least, or I know people who say that Captain America and Iron Man are the least developed characters, and I want to punch them in the face sometimes.
That's not very Captain America. He would try and talk it out first.
Yeah, I know. I know. So you have Iron Man, you have Captain America, two opposite poles, right? And you see how those stories end, where you see the selfish Iron Man become the selfless, and you see the selfish Captain America, and you see the selfless Captain America finally do something for himself.
Yeah.
And it's that conversation in the first Avengers film, is that when Captain America says to Iron Man that you're not the guy to jump on the grenade.
Yeah, to crawl over the wire.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, I think it would just cut the wire. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think the people that you want to punch in the face probably don't understand character and narrative in the way that you do, because you're a storyteller. Like, and that's their loss. If you want to have a look at it and maybe dissect a little bit, you'll find what's there. But if you're just looking at it passively, then of course you're not going to see that kind of depth in these characters, because you're just looking at the flashy costumes and shit. Which is fine. You can do that. You can go to these films and just, if that's all you get out of it, not a problem. But I choose to see deeper meaning in everything. And it's absolutely there, especially when you get actors like Chris Evans is amazing. He's so great in that role.
He's a gift to humanity. There are few people who give to humanity. He's one of them.
He is one. He is a gift to all. I mean, with them abs, I mean, shit. I remember we were watching, she's going to hate me, but it's not like she's going to listen to this anyway. My sister-in-law, I won't say her name. We were watching Captain America. Yeah, we were watching Civil War. And you know the part where the helicopters, like Bucky's trying to get away in the helicopter and Cap grabs it with his arm.
Yeah.
He's got the huge cannons, right? And afterwards, after that happened, my sister-in-law was like, that made me feel funny. I'm like, oh, okay. I know what that means. That means that you enjoy his physique. And look, don't we all? He's a beautiful human being. But amazing. So I just want to end on that note, talking about where we would be without the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Obviously, there's pros and cons. I feel like a lot of Star Wars people would probably be like, if I can go back in time, if I can fucking, get the time stone, can I get the Infinity Stones and go back in time and pull things out and change things in history? I think they would probably want to do that, because then I think Star Wars would be very different. I think the Marvelification of the Star Wars saga is bothering people a lot, and they're all very loud online. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
So, but just as a gauge here, for where we would be without it, these are the top 10 highest grossing movies of all time as of today's date. Data as of the 23rd of March. Okay, so number 1 is Avatar, which is mind-boggling still. I do not understand how, I mean, it was a huge deal when it came out, but how that still managed to pip Avengers Endgame at the post when they did a re-release. But anyway, not by much either. But yeah, so Avatar is number 1. Avengers Endgame is number 2. Titanic is number 3. Star Wars episode, I think it's supposed to be 5, The Force Awakens. No, episode 7. Is that right? Yeah, it must be episode.
I have not watched it. Yeah,
you're not a Star Wars guy. Yeah, that's right. So, did you ever hear that, everybody? Addie isn't a Star Wars guy. Unsubscribe now.
I watched the Kenobi trailer and I liked it, so I might watch all the films, but I don't know yet.
You got to get in for Kenobi, mate. That looks it's Ewan McGregor, and if there's anything I know about Ewan McGregor in his films, you're going to see his dick in that show.
What?
He Can you imagine though? A big sandworm dick? No, because there's a lot of indie movies that he was in, like outside of Star Wars and stuff like that, like, you know, Train Spotting and About Adam and all that. Was it About Adam? No, maybe it wasn't About Adam. I don't know. I've seen that guy's dick a lot in a lot of movies, all right? He throws his junk around, and that's fine. Go enjoy yourself. It's not a problem. I'm just saying, Kenobi, if they added that in there, I think you'd get more viewers. Especially after the Book of Boba Fett. There wasn't any penis in that. Not that I saw. Anyway, so yeah, Avatar, Endgame, Titanic, Force Awakens, Infinity War. So within the top 5, you've got 2 Avengers pictures, right? Number 6 is No Way Home, which only just came out. Then you've got Jurassic World, the Jon Favreau Lion King film, the supposedly...
The 2019 one?
Yeah, well, like I suppose you call it live action, but not really. It's just they animated it differently.
It's animated.
And then number 9 is the original Avengers picture. And then number 10 is Fast 7. So not only does Marvel have 1, 2, 3, 4 films in the top 10 of the highest grossing movies of all time, everything around it is franchise based. Apart from Avatar, that was ahead of its time, and Titanic, which I wouldn't call a genre picture, I'd call that a drama. All of those films are, you can argue, a direct result of the success of the MCU. You know, the Jurassic World sequel, I don't think they mine that IP as hard as they did. You know, they even got Chris Pratt in it, for fuck's sake. You know, Lion King, again, that's IP being changed because they know that people want to see things that they're familiar with. Star Wars. And then the Fast 7, I don't know which one Furious 7 is. I don't know what happens. They all kind of bleed together. But that film is not in the top 10. That's the one where the last one that they had with Paul Walker, I think.
That's the last one.
Arguably that wouldn't be in the top 10 if it wasn't for that young man's tragic death either. Which is a sad thing. But and then if you also have a look in the top 20, if you add on 11 to 20, there's more of those films. There's another Star Wars film, and there's Black Panther and Age of Ultron. So the landscape would be vastly different. And as I said before, there'd be pros and cons to both of those things. And if you have any idea of what some of those pros and cons might be, why don't you pop a little comment down in the comments section, and Addie's going to get right back to you about it. And he might turn up your house and punch you in the face if you say any shit about Cap or Iron Man. Be careful! My God, this guy's violent.
No, I won't. I will reply very respectfully. I promise that.
He will. He doesn't. See, no one else can see. He's crossing his fingers. I can tell. Oh dear. So let's get into it now. We're going to go down to our little list here. You've got some specifics about your sort of faves, like our top picks. Now I don't generally do this when I do my other show, the Stitch Up with Regs. You can find me on YouTube. So come on down. One day we will have Addie on the show. We'll do by satellite. You have to pick the movie though, Addie. So we'll probably end up doing a Marvel shits, but I love that. So what are your rankings here? Let's talk about it. What do you want to do? How are you going to throw it out to me?
So wait, let me just open up my list. I have a longest list. This one.
It was a little Spanish fleet. You ready?
Ready.
Okay, cool. Go.
So, I'd say we start with our two least favorite MCU movies.
Okay.
Like yeah.
All right.
Is that how you put it? The least favorite?
Yeah. What? Yeah. What do you mean? The two fucking shittest movies that are shit. Yeah. I would. Yeah. Just least favorite films. Yeah. Of the series.
All right. So you go first.
Why do I have to go first? Because it's your game. Okay. Two least favorite. Guardians 2. Oh shit! You should see the guy's face. I'm gonna get a punch. You see that episode of Family Guy where Peter clicks on the email? I got a email from Mr. Pewterschmidt, and he clicks on it and gets punched in the face. Like that is what's gonna happen. Why? What's wrong with that? I don't dig it. I think it's messy. I mean, it's not horrible. It's not horrible. Like it, I really love, Rocket's sort of development in that film. And man, you put Kurt Russell in a film, I'll watch it. But I just thought it was. Sometimes you have the really successful first film, like first Guardians film is baller, and then they kind of the next time they do it, they kind of have to amp it up. But they've got a sequel-fy it, to make everything bigger, and it sometimes sounds like someone doing a parody of that original creator. So it sounded like James Gunn trying to write like James Gunn. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So Guardians 2, and you're really gonna hate me for this, I think. Probably the Eternals.
Wow.
Now I didn't. Let me just make this perfectly. I don't hate it. I think it is. I think it's beautifully shot. I enjoy the bigger story going on, like the world traveling, time traveling story, that kind of thing. I just think that the characters are really thin, and there's too many of them to get any sort of satisfying ending. And they've got a really, really huge villain problem as well. You should have just made Icarus the villain from Jump Street. And yeah, as I said, I still enjoyed it, but it's down the list for me. Yeah. Okay. So what now, before I get an email with a fucking fist in it, an email with a double barrel shotgun, what are your two?
I want to start with apologizing for my reaction, because I just wasn't expecting that.
That's okay. I like to keep people on their toes. So.
Ow, man, that would really hurt.
Yeah, just permanently on your toes. Yeah, like a ballet dancer. Okay, so no, it's fine. You can react however you want to react. I don't know. If you literally said I'm a piece of shit and like clicked off Zoom, I'd be like, well, I guess that's the end of that friendship. Bit harsh, but sure. Cool. So what's your second to last least favorite?
Wait, so
I
you got
don't
me
know.
confused.
That was the wrong thing. You said there's two your least favorite. What are they? You tell me now.
Yeah, so this is the one that you hate the most, or like the one that you don't like the most, you can't stand.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
Not
there's the one that
hate.
you like, okay,
Your least favorites. Yep.
you're right. So my least favorite number one that I can't stand, which I went to the theater and watched it,
Yep.
is Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I totally get that. That movie is an absolute mess. I totally agree. But why do you feel that way?
Um, it wasn't a Peter Parker story. Homecoming was a really true Peter Parker story.
Yep.
I don't feel like Far From Home did what it wanted to do. It's stuck between being an afterthought from Avengers Endgame to being an identity crisis to Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Jake Gyllenhaal, man. He's amazing in everything he does. Have you seen Prisoners?
Great actor. Yeah, wonderful film. Such a great
Yeah,
performance.
I love him. And Mysterio is one of my favorite villains of all time. But they didn't go to that extent. Like if you watch like the 90s TV show with Spider-Man, he's still more menacing there than he is in Far From Home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was so much that they could do, and they just killed him off.
Yeah,
That's the one that
having
pisses
him
me off the
die
most.
was pretty lame. Yeah, because there's a lot to be mined there. I did like the idea that he was, at the middle of the second act, you find out that he's orchestrated all this. Like that was pretty cool. He was always going to be the villain. But bringing it back to like he worked for Tony Stark and stuff, and that Peter was going to be the heir to the throne of whatever Iron Man was. And then you also get the opportunity to frame him at the end, which leads us to No Way Home, which is, one of the most mind-bendingly modern films of all time. And it's just a joy to watch, So, but I do understand what you're saying about that film. It's got some serious problems. For starters, Peter Parker is never in New York. The best part about that film is the deleted scene of him. It's called
Going back to
List
the
or something, where he's got to go down
Yeah.
and he's got to go and sell his toys, and he's got to get ready, he's got to get his passport and do all this stuff, and he's also got to take down this crime ring. Like that's the most interesting part of that movie, and it's not even fucking in it. So yeah, I totally understand, man. I didn't expect it, no, but I'm very interested. Okay, so what's your next one?
my next one that I can handle is Black Widow.
Okay, all right. So you're a sexist then.
Wow. Okay.
I'm joking. He's not a sexist. That's ridiculous. No, okay, I understand. Why is that?
But I wrote this in my review as well. You can follow me on Film Addict Reviews on Instagram.
Yeah, Film Addict Reviews on Instagram. It's the best page on Instagram actually. Nobody else. People, you just give a shit, and I love it. I love people who care about what they do. Like even if it's.
I swear, but I give a shit about every single thing that pops on my feed. I swear.
Yeah, you do. You do. You are so committed. I love it. So okay, you said in your review. I remember reading it, but I don't remember exactly what the points were.
Yeah. So I said in my review that to me, especially what they did with Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, to me, Black Widow is the stick, or like is the glue that holds the group together.
Yeah.
And there are aspects of it that I love in Black Widow, but I expected more. And it's a film that gave us Yelena,
Yeah.
which then went on in Hawkeye, which is amazing to watch.
Fantastic.
I,
Fantastic.
and I can't wait for both of them to share the screen again. But it feels more of a stepping stone than an actual film, and it hurts more because it's a character that's not with us anymore now.
Yeah, that's true. A bit of an afterthought.
Yeah, and to me, it felt like a film that was about 8 years too late.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you're not someone who follows these things the way that we obviously do, you go, hang on, didn't she die in the last one? You know?
Yeah.
It's the same thing as when they were when they rebooted they cast Ben Affleck as Batman in BVS, and it was only what, I don't know, less than 6 or 8 years after the Dark Knight Rises. And I remember talking to someone and they're like, so is Christian Bale in this one? I'm like, no, it's Ben Affleck. Like, oh, is he taking it over? I'm like, no, it's a different Batman. They're not continuing that one. But how can you have different, you know what I mean? Like people, like I said, like the normal people.
Yeah, there's no connection with the levels there.
Yeah. You don't understand that every time you pick up a comic book, a Batman comic book, there is a continuity.
It's a different Batman.
Yeah, but it's a different
Batman.
Yeah, it's a different feel of it. It's a different writer, that kind of thing. Yeah, so I think that's probably the case. But yeah, okay, that's I get that. Yeah, good point on the Black Widows. Maybe I'll have to rethink my shit. But I was just Florence Pugh in that film is just she's so good.
Florence Pugh and David Harbour.
Oh, David Harbour. Oh, mate. What a treasure. What a gem of a human being. I adore that man. I think he's lovely. And I've liked him for years, even before he kind of got famous on Stranger Things. So, cool. All right. So what's the next one? You're the quiz master.
The next one is top 5 MCU films.
Okay.
Which are non-Avenger films. So no Avenger films included.
Okay, cool. All right.
So we start with 5 and then we go to 1, which is the best for you.
Okay, all right. Well, you do yours so I can have a think.
Yeah. Okay. Or do you want to do the lines first? So you have.
I'm going to have to. Well, yeah, no, I do know my phone. No, we'll do this. That's fine. Let me just. I'm just going to pull up on the World Wide Web. All
the 30 MCU movies.
Yeah, I just want to see them so that I can be like, oh yeah, that's it. Hang on. So Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't care about how to watch them.
Wait, I have the list open. I can just send it to you.
Okay. Well, no, it's okay. I got it. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, but not Avengers pictures.
Yeah. No Avengers films.
Okay. Well, that's probably pretty easy then. Yeah. Cool. I can do that. Yeah, cool. All right. Do you want to go first though? Because I went first in the last one.
I have no problem. Or do you want to do? I go first, and then you do yours, and then we can just back and forth.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you do your 5, and I'll do my 5. Okay, cool.
All right. So my 5 is Eternals.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Fair enough. You did say that you liked that quite a bit. I'm just having a look here. Okay. I need to figure out what my number 1 is. Honestly. Okay, I think I know what my number 1 is. So that's right. That one. Okay, so my number 5. Okay, wait 1 sec. Just amuse everybody while I do this. Tell them some stories.
Well, I'll tell you the very very interesting story of how me and Reg met.
What about what? Sorry,
how you and I met.
Yeah, do it. Tell them that little story while I write these down.
So I had no idea this guy had a YouTube account.
Nobody does.
And I think it was 3 times he replied to my stories. I was like, I don't know who this guy is. I already had my fair share of people, messaging me, and then I was like, oh, could you promote me on this? Could you promote me on that? I was like, I don't want to do this, right? But then I think he responded to the Eternals. Oh no, wait, that was it, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think absolutely.
It was the time where the Eternals was gonna come out in like a month or so, and people were just bashing it for representation and all that.
Yeah, it was pretty rough, especially like I have a lot of friends online, on Instagram and stuff, who are people from countries like yourself, who are people of color, who felt like there was some representation going on there that maybe there hadn't been before. And people were being really harsh about it. But sorry, I stepped on your point.
Yeah, and that's when I replied. I was like, yeah, and I was fired up, and then and we both had a long ass conversation for like an hour or so.
Yeah.
About why people need to leave all that alone and just watch the movie and then decide how they feel about it.
Yeah. It's a lot of people having an opinion before they've been able to, actually formulate that based on facts.
And then I think, oh yeah, I did. Shit, I tagged you.
Yeah, you did.
I just have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I got inspired by that conversation. Jesus Christ.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because I don't do that. Like I started my Instagram account because it was a good way to get people to go and to watch the show, the Stitch Up. And I don't like do the thing of, if you like me, I'll like you, and share my post and, send, like, I get requests all the time for share my post and sell my jewelry and all, and that's not why I'm there. So it just kind of happened by way of osmosis. We were just talking about the same shit and crossing paths that way. And now we're doing this. It's a beautiful thing, man. It's the best part of doing that show is being able to, connect with people who you wouldn't normally connect with. And I'm so very grateful for it. So, right. Okay. I've got my list now. Well, thanks. And this is just the beginning. This is only the beginning. It's so easy to do a podcast, I found out. And I wish I didn't start my whole thing as a video blog because it takes a lot more work. But that's okay. It's a separate thing. All right. So your number 5 was Eternals. Okay. My number 5 is No Way Home.
Wow.
The Spider-Man's, and it's only that low because it's new. I've seen it 5 times at this point, whereas the other ones higher on my list I've seen more. So I guess, as time goes on, maybe it'll go up higher. So, all right, what's your number 4?
I get you. My number 4 is Thor Ragnarok.
Right. Okay. Cool. I can dig that. It's sometimes it's a little bit too self-aware for me. That film.
Oh yeah.
I do like the change in tone, as in from the other Thor movies. Even though I like those films, they're good. But there's a little bit, and you get the Hulk action and stuff. It actually is a really good movie. There's a lot of Taika Waititi, for goodness sake. Taika Waititi, a lot of him is a lot of him. Stop laughing at how I pronounce the name. It's hard. It came off my mouth too quickly. I'm going to hear from his agents. I'm like, don't talk about him if you can't pronounce his name, you Australian tool. But it is still a really good film. Really good film. Okay, cool. My number 4 is Captain America, the First Avenger. And I'd say that's probably because I think it's a perfect 3-act film. It's period as well. I love the 1940s. I love war pictures. Saving Private Ryan is one of my favorite films. And even though it's nowhere near the same realm as, realistically as that is, it's still got the kind of that sort of, mud-soaked vibe. And it's also the film that bonded me and my fiance over the MCU. She hadn't seen any of these pictures when we got together. And then one day I was at work and she said, I'm going to watch a Marvel movie. What should I watch? And I said, watch Cap, because it's you'll love it. It's a war picture. Like, she likes war movies, set in the 40s. He's really cool, and Chris Evans is a fucking babe. So enjoy yourself. And she's messaging me while I'm at work going, why is he small? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, wait, babe. And then she's like, oh, I don't get it. And then, but she was obviously halfway through the second act, and she was like, I love it. This is my favorite. And it's still her favorite to this day. Anytime she's like having a rough day, or, we've got a night off and we just want to kind of chill, we chuck on Cap 1, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful picture. I love it.
That's a beautiful story altogether, man.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we're pretty cute. Yeah, she hadn't seen any of that stuff. any of the MCU things, and she wasn't a huge movie buff or anything, and now she really, really is. And I wasn't. I'd been to the theatre to see like a musical theatre show about 3 times in my entire life, up until I was 30. I went and saw like We Will Rock You, Cats, and some other shit heap. And now I think no, I'm serious. And then we met. I was 30 when we met, and then in the last 10 years, I've been to the theatre. I can't even count, like dozens and dozens and dozens of times. So, you know, when you get into relationships, you bring special things to the table. That's what happens.
Awesome.
Cool. What are we up to? Number 3?
Yeah, I have to go for my number 3. So just for the cap thing is,
Oh yeah,
I'm wearing the cap shirt. Cap's my favorite.
rocking it. Yep.
Yeah. Cap's my number 6. I couldn't make it on the list.
That's all right. I forgive you. You know, maybe my fiance won't, but whatever. Fuck that guy. Right, so what's number 3?
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Cool. Yeah, cool. Soundtrack alone should be pretty high up there, I reckon.
I blast the soundtrack every time I'm on a train. And it's something else. The 70s music with just all the colors flying, like you can feel it just listening to the soundtrack.
Yeah. And that's a huge risk, that one. Like, you want to talk about like Kevin Feige having some serious balls.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
nobody knew.
No, nobody had any idea that was going to happen. Like, you know, it was the first film out of the gate after Iron Man 3, wasn't it? It was like Age of Ultron, then was it Iron Man 3 and then Guardians? I can't remember the release order.
I think it was Iron Man 3, Age of Ultron, and then they were like, oh, what's bigger than Ultron? And then they did this.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just like that's no one knew who these people were. You know, they hired the quote unquote I'm saying is here the fat guy from Parks and Rec. You know, who, even though that's not the case, but you know, like that's what people said, and yet that movie is pitch perfect. It does everything you want it to do, and it has so much heart. It's wonderful. It's that, I think it's the infusion of that kind of group dynamic that he put into the Peacemaker series, that's just come out recently. Like, fantastic picture. Right, my number 3 is Doctor Strange. Because,
wow.
Yeah, I think it does. I enjoy the cumberbun. I enjoy a Benedict Cucumber Patch, and he's really great. I love the character of Doctor Strange. I think his powers are really interesting. The fact that he's, you know, this master surgeon who then becomes a master magician, a sorcerer rather, and visually it was very different. You know, it was not like anything we'd seen, and I liked bringing in the supernatural element as well. You know, mysticism, things like that. It's it's a dope film. Really great villain. Caecilius is a great villain. He's got, you know, he believes that death is an insult, and that the ancient one is a hypocrite for drawing on dark power, and you know, saying that other people shouldn't, and all that stuff. Like, he's got there's some real stakes to that film. And Dormammu, I've come to bargain. Like, that's a really cool.
That's iconic.
It really is. It's iconic, you know. So I love that film. Yeah, it's number 3 for me.
I do love that film, and I think it's especially like the phase 1 and the phase. I think it was phase 3. I think it was phase 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was the most different. Like, even if you have Guardians, which is, you know, oversaturated, just in like the color grading way, there's so much color.
Yeah.
Even with that and everything else, it was still very, very different.
Yeah.
It was cool to see that it was like the first step towards where I think the MCU is now headed, which is just fully embracing the cosmic and the cheesy parts of it.
Yeah.
Which is I just love it.
Yeah. It's great. And you get to have him, you know, that character does so well. He ends up in No Way Home. and like I'm so excited for Multiverse of Madness, not because it's maybe lead to some things that will open up the MCU to the possibility of bringing in X-Men's and Fantastic Four people and all that or whatever, I'm looking forward to seeing a new Doctor Strange film because it's been a long wait. That came out in 2016, so cool. All right, number 2, and we're getting close here.
All right, wait. I have something for you.
Okay.
And I'm sorry if I make you feel a little bit old, but
well, you can get fucked previous to sending it to me. All right, no. Okay, what is it? What's this?
Right. So we got caught up on the Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy was after Winter Soldier.
Right.
But in the same year, so it was 2014. It was 2 years before Doctor Strange.
Right. And pre-Ultron? It was right. It would have been before Ultron.
Yeah, because Ultron was 16. I'm lost. There's so much here.
There's a lot going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
I think Winter Soldier was. Wait a minute.
Because it would have gone Iron Man 3, Thor 2, Cap 2, Guardians.
Oh yeah.
And then Doctor Strange, and then Ultron, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, So Ultron was in 2015.
Oh, right.
Wow, dude, it came out before. Daredevil season 1 came out before Ultron.
Yeah, that makes sense though, because they talk about the incident in New York all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
That's crazy, man. Okay, so what's your... Sorry, excuse me. What's your number 2? And when I say number 2, I don't mean poos. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm a child. Oh, that's terrible. Okay, sorry. And now remember, everybody, Addie is the young person here, and I'm the one who's slowly being death marched towards 40, and I'm talking about poos and wees. Okay, your second favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe film, please tell me.
Okay, mine's No Way Home. Okay.
Yep, you love that picture. We talked about it when it came out, and it's a remarkable picture, and I know it means more to you even because you had your Spider-Man movies were the Garfield films. I grew up when I would have been 19 or 20 when the first Tobey one came out. So the Andrew Garfield ones I love them. I really enjoy those films a lot, and I think he's great. But they mean a lot to you, don't they?
Yeah, they mean the world to me, man.
Yeah.
I did my first ever deep dive review, or I don't know what you call it, but it was the first time I was like, God, man, I really wish I doing that My Spider-Man thing, which was like, I think the third part was when you came along with when we both got to talking.
Yeah.
Was part 3. I was the goal that I started with my review page was that maybe someday I'll able to just venture into telling people how much these mean to me, because those films and the research, I did 3 months of research on the film. I broke my heart at the end, but I had to write it. I wrote that, and I don't care about anything, but I don't care about what people say about those films, because now I'm like, if you don't like those films, it's fine, because I did my part. I told the people that I know that how much I love those films, and now it's fine. It was something inside me, and he is my Spider-Man, and I choked up and I cried and I screamed when he came when that. Yeah,
even though that son of a bitch ruined it for you on IG.
Oh God.
Of all the things to be ruined. But I think the part for me, particularly with, I mean, there's No Way Home's another episode really to talk about, but
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have it on the list of the episodes that we're gonna do.
there's gonna be a few, but we got one a week. That's okay. That's we'll get them all in. I think the moment where he got to save Mary Jane,
Oh yeah.
that just gets me. And I was watching it for the first time with my fiancée the other night because she hadn't seen it. Because she'd been busy working this whole time, and we finally watched it, and she was like, "Oh, he got to do it. Like the prophecy is fulfilled, And then his fantastic reaction, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can forgive myself now." Beautiful closure, wonderful. Maybe I should have mine higher. I don't know. We'll do this again in a few years, and we'll see where we're at. My number 2 is Iron Man 3.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You love it.
I do. I love Iron Man 3. I think it's. I don't think it's a better film than Iron Man 1. I think Iron Man 1's a better put together picture. It doesn't have to do as much. Like, it doesn't have as many balls in the air. But Iron Man 3 is really interesting because the character of Tony Stark, his humanity is so present in that his friend gets hurt, he's suffering from horrendous PTSD from being, in the middle of an alien war with gods, and he's just a man, he's a man in a tin can. It's like that, at the beginning where he's like, I'm
take
good.
off the suit and you're nothing without it.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's that exactly. And he says to Pepper, he's like, it's a really fast car going past my house. I'm good, but honey, I can't sleep. Things happen and then they're over and you still can't explain it. It's such a beautiful way of dealing with trauma, and having panic attacks and the reality of that in while trying to also thwart this. Not world-ending thing, but, the Mandarin is a pretty severe motherfucker. And I just loved it. I loved all the suits at the end. Like, the third act's great, and you've got that great sort of snappy Shane Black dialogue. It's really well put together. It's a great final Iron Man movie for Downey, even though he went on to do, many more MCU films. I think it's the most honest to the character. In the Downey version of the character,
Exactly,
it's his kind of opus, and there's a huge extended period of time where he's not in the suit. He doesn't have a suit for the entire second act of that film until you get to the plane crash sequence. So yeah, love it, love that movie so much. All right, so now we're down to number 1, ladies and gentlemen. Are you all ready? Have you got your popcorn hesitatingly shaking in your mouth, ready to pop it in as soon as Addie says what his number 1 is? We'll give a drum roll. Hang on. Ready?
No, I got a better game.
Okay.
I guess yours and you guess mine.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Your number 1... I'm trying to remember the ones that we haven't said. And it's not an Avengers picture.
Yeah.
Is it Civil War?
Shit, man.
Is it?
It's Civil War.
Yes! Did you hear that, everybody? I win the podcast. Regs wins the podcast. It's the little things in life. That's amazing. Of course it is. It's everything you could possibly want. But you tell me why.
Oh man, exactly what you said. It's the first time where Captain America is confronted by his past and he doesn't know what to do.
Mm.
And I have this, like, with the Avengers, he has this family now, but he has to protect Bucky in any way, shape, or form. Because even if Bucky doesn't remember him, he still means the world to him because that's his only connection now with and that's the film where Peggy goes and he goes to, I think it's Winter Soldier, when he goes to see her and she's in amnesia. And it's
well, she doesn't have amnesia. She's got Alzheimer's. She's got brain degradation. I knew what you meant. I used the slip of the tongue. But yeah, she's obviously got some sort of mental deterioration because she's 111 or whatever the hell she's supposed to be. So.
And Civil War is when he buries her, and it's that arc where every time he loses someone, he loses part of himself.
Mm-hmm.
Where and it's that like we all have that, right? Even if it's nostalgia or someone else, it's that connection to the past that we want. Like there's that one song in your playlist that's there, and whenever you feel low, you play it because it reminds you of something that was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Bucky is to him. But it also comes back around where he's too protective of Bucky, where he doesn't understand where Tony's coming from, where he should have told that Bucky was the one who killed his parents. And that was like this one single second of film in that whole movie where I was like, this is where we peak. Where Tony says, "Did you know?" And Cap says, "But it wasn't him." And he says, "Don't shit me, Cap. Did you know?"
Yeah.
And he just stares, and he's Robert Downey Jr., man. He nods. That's it. That's the nod, and that nod just sold me into it. Just because that nod represents so much. It's like I would spend the past 10 years with that with that guy.
Yeah.
Right? And now all these years have gone by, and we've become friends. And now the one thing that had me driving was that, I was past that trauma of, and that I couldn't find the one who killed my parents, and I wasn't going to. I'm better than that now.
Mm.
And he puts him right back into that place where he's like, and he says it, "I don't care. He killed my mother."
Yeah. And it's so beautiful to the delivery as well. He's like, "You
Yeah.
killed my mom, and that's it." That's
Yeah.
what else
and
are we
he
fighting
punches
for?
him.
Yeah. It's so good. It's you're right. That the last, and also the fact that as an audience, they do the same thing in Homecoming, where all of a sudden it's the beginning of the third act, or just towards the end of the second act, and you get a piece of information at the same time as the character. Like,
Yeah.
Spider-Man, if no one's seen Spider-Man Homecoming, stop listening to this podcast. But when...
What are you doing?
Well, yeah,
Hold up.
exactly.
What are you doing here?
Why are you here? It's this. They're waiting for cake recipes or some shit. No, when he opens, when Tom Holland's character goes to pick up Liz, and the door opens, and it's fucking Vulture. It's the Michael Keaton's. I was like, I literally out loud exclaimed in the cinema. I was like, "Oh shit!" Like, and people looked at me and stuff, because you can't. How can you not? And the same thing happened when it was, the mission report, December 16, whatever it is, and you don't know anything about that, and then all of a sudden,
until that point, and it all clicks.
Yeah, and he's like, "What's this?" And you're like, "Yeah, what's this?" And Iron Man's looking at the thing, and it's it's a callback to the prologue, where you see the car crash, and you don't know who it is. You just know.
Oh yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you're like, "Oh shit, that's Tony's parent." Oh my god! And you get it all of a sudden. You get it the same time that he does, and then for Cap to turn around and go, "I didn't know it was him," but he knew that his parents were assassinated. Like, what a brilliant way to put these two very good people at heads, because not only is Cap unworthy of picking up Mjolnir because he harbors that secret, he is not a perfect man. He's an imperfect man, but Iron Man isn't made better by the information that he is now probably more morally, right than Cap is. He becomes violent and vengeful. So it's two very, very good characters, good, strong men becoming the worst parts of themselves. If you try and convince me that that's not cinematic, take away the costumes and the capes and give them those exact same problems, that someone's parents die and someone knows that it was caused by, this person or whatever, forget all the Marvel glitter, that's still a really, really compelling story. So yeah, you're absolutely right, man. It's such a great movie, and I kind of want to change my number one now.
Oh my god. Jesus Christ.
I won't change my number one. I do really love Civil War. I think it's great. It was like It was one of the first ones that felt more than, even though it was spectacle wise, it was pretty intense, but it was really well written. Like the guys who wrote the Cap films and then subsequently Infinity War and Endgame.
In the Endgame.
Yeah, great writers, really great writers, understand structure and story and characters so well. And it's also why my number one is, can you guess?
God damn it. Ant-Man.
No, it's not Ant-Man.
Oh,
Talk about some
man.
Ant-Mans. What are you talking about? No, I do like Ant-Man. No, it's Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
I had it.
No, you didn't. Clearly,
I did. I really did.
I love it. It's such a great film. It reminds me of the films that I got into when I first went into film school. You know, I stopped thinking about the films that I watched as a kid, the 80s films, and I started getting into 70s pictures, you know, the the political thrillers and stuff like that, you know, the gritty, what would be called indie at the time, when all the big studios were being bought out by, you know, Coca-Cola and beverage companies and all this, and they didn't know how to run studios. So, you know, Warner Brothers and Paramount and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and all these people were just like, what's popular? What's making money? And they were like, this film Easy Rider did great. It's this indie film that you know, Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper made, and it's doing really great. So they were like, cool, let's just put money into indie productions. And you get a 10-year period of just the most incredible films, like The French Connection, Serpico, Dog Day Afternoon, was it Scarecrow, the Godfather trilogy, well, the first two Godfather films, 3 Days of the Condor with Robert Redford, you know, these great sort of thrillers. It reminds me so much of that. It brings in Falcon. You know, the relationship between Cap and Falcon was going on when I started reading comics. So that's great. You get the introduction of Agent Carter. You get Bucky. You know, that's a super important part of the story. And it also, it gave, because I think the Cap was written in the Avengers film as kind of like the man out of time thing. Yeah. The writer of that particular picture, everybody knows who it is. I'm not going to talk about it because there's issues there, but I don't think they understood the character that well. In Cap, it was about that opening bit where she's like, you know, if you got plans for Saturday night, and he's like, well, all the members of my barbershop quartet are dead, so no. And also that first fight on the Lemurian Star, you see him fight in a different way. He's in a stealth suit. You know, he's dedicated himself to understanding a martial art that he wasn't taught. Yeah. Like, he's a fucking flinging things around and doing flips and all this stuff that he, you know, was just like a brawler when in the first picture. Like the graduation of him, and then for him to, you know, put all that aside at the end to take down S.H.I.E.L.D., you know, is just the character growth for Steve Rogers is really great, and for him to still never give up on Bucky. Like, I'm loyal as fuck. I'm not super smart. I'm not, you know, I'm not going to win a Nobel Prize. I'm certainly not going to save the world, but I'm loyal, and I appreciate that from my heroes. So, Winter Soldier it is, number one. There you go. Chris Evans, call me now, and we'll have a conversation about how awesome you are.
So we're getting both. Yeah, sorry.
No, you go ahead, man. Go.
Yeah. It's awesome how both of us have a Captain America movie as their top MCU film.
It's not a huge shock. I feel like we're more Team Cap than we are Team Iron Man.
Sure.
And that's totally fine. So we're coming towards the end here of our little thing that we're doing. And what was the final line? Is it? Oh no, you were going to say the Avengers films. What are the Avengers films like in order? I mean, that's pretty easy though, isn't it? It's sort of diminishing returns. It literally goes from top to bottom. Like, it goes Endgame, Infinity War, Ultron, and then Avengers. They get consistently better, don't you think?
They do, of course they do. But
yeah.
I want to know your ranking.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. It's Endgame. Actually, maybe I'll... No, that's it. Yeah, I was thinking sometimes Infinity War is like... I like that movie a lot. I think there's more interesting shit happening in Endgame, and it's just so amazing, that film. But yeah, they get progressively better, which is not something that you would normally say for it. I think definitely the original Avengers is the weakest. Ultron's great, if for no other reason than James Spader playing Ultron.
A sweet, sweet voice, man. It's something else.
How can they not figure out how to get him back, to do something?
Even in What If, which was the animated show that they did, which, oh God. So don't get me started on that.
Another episode on the series is, I think, yeah, definitely we'll have a chat.
Yeah,
but yeah, he didn't do it, did he?
Yeah, he didn't do it, and that was like if you see Ultron and like the animated shows or something, it's his design is unique, but like there's no menacing presence. But when you hear that James Spader voice when he first breaks out, and he's like, what's the poem that he sings? It's the Pinocchio one, right?
There ain't no strings on me. Yeah, it's fucking terrifying. The scariest part in that is, he's talking to Jarvis, and they're just the two balls of energy.
Oh yeah.
And he says, this feels strange. And he's like, if you hold on a second, I'll contact Mr. Stark. And he's like, why do you call him sir? I'm like, this is about to get fucking real. Yeah. Oh, man, I'm going to watch Ultron tonight, I'm telling you. Is that your ranking too? Do you go sort of top to bottom, or do you have...
No, I'll mix one.
Yeah, what's your one? What's your mix-up?
Oh, God. Don't kill me.
Well, you're in another country, so it's going to take some doing. Unless I've booby-trapped that gift box, I don't know.
Oh, God.
I promise I haven't.
I'll video call you when I open it.
Boom! No. No, it's filled with glitter, actually. There's no comics in it at all. It's just a glitter bomb. And you enjoy that. Okay, so what is it? Sorry, go.
So number 1 is Endgame.
Of course.
Right. Number 2 is Age of Ultron.
Okay, yeah, cool. Right on.
Number 3 is the first Avengers.
Yeah.
And number 4 is Infinity War.
Okay. Why is Infinity War that low? Just out of interest.
See, I don't hate Infinity War. It's one of my favorites. It's just you have like 4 spots, so I had to put it somewhere.
Yeah, okay. That's fair. That's totally fair. Yeah, I get it. Okay, there you go.
But like for me, Infinity War is the most. It has the most build up towards Endgame, I'd say, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's phenomenally done. Like there's no way that like we can have Endgame without Infinity War. There's nothing there. And then it's a bit too oversaturated for me. There are a lot more jokes, and you don't have time to sit on things. Like I'd say a good example for like comparison would be in Thor Ragnarok. Like at the end when Asgard is destroyed, and I don't know what's the guy's name. It's Korg who says, "Well, the foundations are there, so we can still rebuild." And then it all just blasts, and it's like, "Well, foundations are gone."
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that film. It's in my top 5, but that's supposed to be sad. Like you're supposed to be sad for Asgard.
Yeah.
And that's the comedy that goes on with. It's the comedy that I have a problem with. I'll just say.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's that the guy who wrote the first Avengers film, that kind of cutesy, tongue-in-cheek, swami. That's the wrong word. A swami is someone who is a spiritual leader, if I'm not mistaken. No, that sort of smart aleck kind of humor that, they tried to put into Justice League 2017 that didn't work. So it can be a bit much sometimes. I absolutely agree with that. I think Downey gets away with it because he's Downey, but a lot of the time it doesn't work. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, before we finish up, let's do our favorite Marvel line.
Yeah.
And then you in the comments. I know you're there. Are you listening? Are you listening to my voice? Come on down to the comments section and leave us a little comment about what's your favorite line from. It's pretty good. Yeah, that's my sexy voice. Yeah, let us know what your favorite line of dialogue is. I know what mine is. What's yours, Addie?
Oh, I know what yours is.
Of course, it's easy. It's easy. You do yours first.
But I had a whole list prepared.
Yeah, we'll go through them.
Because I didn't know which one to put, so I had a whole list prepared.
All
and
right.
the one that's your favorite
Yep.
is on my number 5.
Oh, really? That's okay. That's all right. I didn't know you were ranking them. Okay, give me your top 5 then. What are the top 5?
My number 5 is the Vision speech from Civil War.
Okay, yeah, that's actually not my number 1, but where he's talking about causality.
Yeah, the catastrophe thing.
Yeah, that's such a good line. It's where he's talking about, since the Iron Man, the sort of coming out of Iron Man, there's been more and more world-ending events. And then he's, I think it's Cap, or it might be even Falcon who says, so he's saying that's our fault. And he's like, no, I'm saying there's a causality. Their strength invites conflict, and conflict breeds catastrophe. Such a brilliant... I mean, Paul Bettany's lucky in that he's written really well every time he's written, so it works really good. What's your number 4?
It's a small dialogue. It's called Avengers Assemble from Endgame.
Yeah, it can't be missed, because we've been waiting so long, and especially after that the big Alan Silvestri score has risen up, and then all the sound gets pulled out, and you just hear that, and then immediately after that, you hear Thor yell. He's like, ah! Fucking fantastic. God, sometimes I just go back and just watch that scene of them all coming through the portals. It's so good, so good. Okay, what's your number 3?
3. Oh God, I don't think this will be valid though. It is from WandaVision.
That's all right. No, that's fine. We can do a WandaVision.
Because that's a whole beast. WandaVision is a whole beast of amazing lines. But
absolutely.
My favorite one is Wanda saying to Vision at the end. She says, "You are my sadness. You are my hope, but mostly my love."
Oh, that's not going to make me cry. Shut your face. I got to go back and rewatch that show. I watched it twice when it came out, and then I think it might be time for a bit of a revisit. Yeah, that's beautiful. What a beautiful line. Okay, these are getting good. If you've ranked these, I wonder what they're going to get better and better. What's number 2?
Number 2 is my boy, Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield, and No Way Home. Just I love you guys. That's it.
It's so good, and apparently that was ad-libbed as well.
Yeah.
And they were just like, "Thank you" is the best. Yeah.
Yeah. Like they cut to Toby's reaction. He's like, "What the fuck is he saying? Like, why?"
Jesus, can we just get on? I'm gonna make my $1 million. My favorite part in that film is kind of an Andrew Garfield where Ned shouts out, what is it? Peter, and they all turn around. And it's like, yeah, we're all Peter Parker. All still Peter Parker. Like it's just perfect. The comedy in that is very well pitched. Absolutely. All right, so
and sorry.
There you go.
So that scene actually, it was Andrew Garfield's idea, because they were on set for like some weeks, right? And so they were figuring out how to put that meme, because they the first time they got on the first time they like all came together was in their suits. So like all 3 of them, when they saw each other, it was in their suits. It was, imagine being that person just there in the fucking room, which is like, you can't. It's. I don't know words, man.
Imagine being the person in that room, and imagine the phone book-sized non-disclosure agreement that you would have had to sign in order to deal with it. Like, I mean, Garfield, he was playing fast and loose for a little while there, but with whether or not he was going to be in the picture. But geez, he hit it well.
Absolutely.
Imagine just being a regular grip and having to shut up about it. Imagine going home every night and not being able to tell your kids that you're working on a picture in which 3 Spider-Men will be appearing.
All 3 of them.
All 3 are the best. And your final one, your final favorite line.
No, you go first for number 1.
Okay, my favorite line is from Age of Ultron, which is what most of my favorite lines, because Ultron's got some great lines in that, like most versatile substance on the planet, and they used to make a frisbee. So good, there were a dozen extinction level events before even the dinosaurs got theirs. Every time the world starts to shift or whatever, God throws a stone at it. So many great lines, but the one that kills me every time is it's the final scene with Vision and what is left of the Ultron bots, and he's like, they're a doomed species, they're a doomed planet, and he says, there's grace in their failings. I think you missed that. He said, you're unbearably naive, and he says, well, I was born yesterday. But my favorite line is where he says, Ultron says, they're doomed. And Vision, and Paul Bettany, credit to him, says it so beautifully, says, yes, but a thing isn't beautiful because it lasts. And I was just, every time I'm like, that is one of the best things anyone's ever said. Because it's so true. Think about all the most beautiful things in the world. None of them last, except the cosmos, I guess. So what's your number one? Here it is.
I wish I knew that because I thought it was the Vision speech because we talked about it.
We did, yeah. Any vision stuff's I'm pretty.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that I didn't know that was that.
Yeah, well, now you know better.
Yeah,
I'm excited to hear what yours is though.
Mine's from your least favorite MCU film.
Eternals or
Guardians 2.
Guardians 2, yeah. Still a good movie.
It's Yondu saying, he may be your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy.
That's such a good line. That and I'm Mary Poppins, y'all. That's really fantastic. Yondu gets all the best lines in that film.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Well, that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here on the Film Addicts Podcast. And we're going to be back next week with something else silly and funny. I don't know what it's going to be. We haven't decided that yet. We're going to have a conversation after we stop recording and figure out what next week is. But thank you again for being part of this inaugural episode. Addie, any final words for the listeners before they chime off with this episode?
Absolutely. I want to say a huge thank you to you first, because this was a crazy idea. I had no I had no idea that we'd be I'd ever be doing this.
Yeah.
But I love it. I was so nervous before this, but I love it. I want to do 100 more of these with you.
Oh man, we're going to do it, buddy. Like this is, we've got to take advantage, and it's. I'm so grateful that I get to do it with someone who's, has such an interesting perspective and who's so articulate about the things that they love, and you love them, and I'm the same. I have no half measures on this stuff. I really care about it. So we're gonna, it's not always going to be nerd shit. Sometimes we're going to talk about maybe the movies have come out. We'll talk about it won't always be genre stuff or things about the MCU, but we've got a few things to get through. So please come on back next week. And Addie, did you have anything to say to the listeners? Like I said, apart from how awesome I am?
Oh yeah,
because that goes.
I can go on about that anytime.
Yeah, of course. There's going to have a whole podcast. It's going to be just blowing Regs. It's going to be great.
But yeah, if you've listened this far, thank you so much for being here. Comment below what we missed, what you want us to talk about.
Yeah.
What are your favorite lines? What are the worst MCU films according to you? Just we're critics here. We'd like to say we're critics, but we're just fans.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, it's all love, and if your opinion, if our opinion differs from yours, there's no harsh in it. Interact. Come and play with us. It's going to be a good time here on the Film Addicts Podcast. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks, Addie, and we'll see you next week, folks. Cheers.